Welcome to Fearless Finances, where I try to take the fear out of your finances. A couple of days ago, I published a video about 5 things you can do to promote financial stability during this Trump economy. And a few of you asked about the specific investments that I have in overseas funds because you were considering adding them to your portfolio. I thought about doing this video live, but then I thought, you know what? I'm going to actually be showing you my online account. And I thought it was better to be able to pre-screen that a little bit. But I've got everything locked and loaded for you to give you a little bit of insight on how I make these decisions and what decisions I made. So if you're interested in finding out ways that you can keep your retirement strategies and other investments less volatile during this Trump economy, I encourage you to meet me on the other side. Okay, before I show you some of the things about my portfolio, I want to tell you a few things about my portfolio. And here I'm going to give you some of the actual numbers. I have to say, I'm not normally shy about these sorts of things, but I just also know that my portfolio is not where I expected that to be. And I've done other videos about my life journey and why that is. Mostly it's because I got a divorce and I had to share my savings with him. The same holds true for my home equity. I gave him his share and then I lost mine in the 2008 crash when the home that we had shared went down in value. So I, like potentially many of you, have suffered some financial losses. But right now, my cash holdings, including my retirement account, is at about 450,000. Now, not all of that is retirement savings. Some of it is in an HSA, a health savings account, and some of it is just other savings, like in a cash value life or in a money market account. If you've never really tuned into my videos before either, I typically advocate paying as little as you can on your debt and saving as much as you can. So I do also have some debt, but all of my savings would pay off all of my debt and I'd still have savings left over. And that's where I encourage people to get in their financial planning. Now, here's the other thing. Even though I've had these other setbacks earlier in my life, my goal when I retired, and I was hoping to retire at about 65, was to have about $1 million saved. And honestly, given that I'm 58 and the amount that I try to contribute each year, I would be able to probably achieve that if we hadn't had elected Donald Trump. Now, granted, nothing's for sure. And there's always a boom and a bust. But we really don't have people in government right now who are both well equipped to manage a financial crisis. And they're actually doing stuff just to mess it up, like tariffs. Ridiculous. This is the other thing. Even though I had planned to retire somewhere around 65, I had this dollar amount regarding Social Security that once my monthly withdrawal hit that particular dollar amount, I was probably going to retire or at least trim back, because I own my own business and I would be able to trim back on actually how much I work and still collect Social Security. So I would have that as a backup. Plus, I also have online courses that, whether or not I'm teaching anymore, would still produce an income for me. So I'm pretty fortunate in that. With Trump having been elected, I'd like to dip out now. I love the people who attend my classes, but I don't like having to discuss government policy, economics, and even ethics in this environment. One of the classes I have to teach this week is called Ethical Evolution, how our ethics have evolved. And it's mostly about racism. Last time I had to teach this course like 2 months ago, I canceled it. I could not sit in front of an audience and talk about us evolving when we're actually devolving. That gives you an idea of where I'm at right now. And I forgot that when I record this particular place in my Mazatlan condo, I've got that light behind me. So bear with me. Maybe I'll lean forward so we don't have so much of that going on, but then my face gets huge on your screen. I did order a brand new table to sit over there by my cool pictures. So I'll have my little studio set up all the time, and that light, that window won't be behind me. So don't give up on me. Anyways, I'm back in Mazatlan, and pretty soon I'll be taking all the footage that I filmed while in Mexico City and creating some videos for you about that too. But back to my portfolio. I was hoping to hit $1 million by the time that I retired based on what I was setting aside and the gains in my portfolio. And part of the reason that I thought I might be able to hit that is my move to Mexico. It helped reduce my overall expenses so that I could save more. When Trump got elected, if you haven't watched that other video, I will link it up at the end of this so you can. When Trump got elected, I went super conservative with my portfolio. I'd always been very aggressive in my investment mix, but I am too close to retirement now to let him and his cronies and all this crazy mess with my return and what I've worked really hard for, really hard. So I moved it super conservative. So I didn't have to suffer through much of that first April crash when it was, I want to call it Insurrection Day. Oh my gosh. But it was Liberation Day. Yes. Liberation, insurrection. What's the difference? We're all held captive by Donald J. So anyway, my portfolio didn't take a huge dip because I had mostly bonds at that time. But then after I realized what he was doing and how steep those tariffs would be, and the fact that no one in the world is going to trust us through this, that they would start to collaborate, I started to sell off some of those bond holdings, and I moved them into some overseas funds, mostly European, but I also did some Pacific Rim, as well as just international funds. So let me show you what it looks like. As you can see with the numbers before you, right now my portfolio is close to 70% stocks and then 32% bonds. But please also notice that most of my stock holdings are international. Only about 25% of the mix right now is domestic or U.S. stock-based assets. For the bonds, it's the reverse of that. I only have about 20% international bonds, and then domestic is about 80%. Now, some of you who had commented on the earlier post, 5 things you can do to have a stable portfolio in this Trump economy. Well, not even just stable portfolio, but stable finances, even more important, had said that a lot of your bond holdings also are in the U.S., but more of the U.S. government variety. I did some looking at my holdings, and mine are probably more in the corporate line, which I was relieved to see because I always forget kind of where my portfolio is because I try not to look at this every day or worry about it every day. But I was a little concerned that I might have too much in the U.S. holding area. And this is the thing. If Donald Trump really messes with this too much, other countries, companies, people are going to start selling off their U.S. government assets. And as a result, I did not want to get caught up in the fray of that. And granted, if some of those things come to bear, it's going to be hard to find any safe harbor. I think it's also important to look at the expense ratios. If you have not watched it yet, I did a video, and it's probably my most well-watched video about getting a financial advisor. And in that, I talked about the fact that when I left my financial advisor, I went to Vanguard. And the reason I went to Vanguard is a gentleman named Jack Bogle. He has passed on, but he founded Vanguard on the premise of having lower administrative costs. Please notice how my expense ratios break down on my portfolio. Right now, they're at about 0.1%, where the industry average is about 0.5%. You are going to find that I have a lot of Vanguard assets in my portfolio. And this isn't because I would only buy Vanguard. I would buy whatever I believed would perform well and had low expense ratios. I would buy anything, anywhere with those two parameters. It's just usually when I do my research, it turns out that the Vanguard assets fall under that umbrella, at least in the areas that I've been looking at. So here are, again, some of those assets. So the portfolio that you're looking at here is my traditional IRA. My traditional IRA, or the fully tax deducted portion of my IRA, is about 75% of my retirement holdings. In a way, I wish I had more Roth IRA assets, but when I was making a lot of money, to have the deduction up front was too attractive to give up. So these monies will be taxable when I go to withdraw them, unlike my Roth IRA. And as you can see here, there is a lot of Vanguard in this portfolio. There's the European Stock Fund at the top. There's a total international bond fund in this portfolio. I also have a U.S. stock ETF. And this one is an ESG. This means that it focuses in on environmental, social, and governance. I try to invest my money in areas that I care about. And so I wanted to have this in my portfolio, even through the Trump administration. I did a lot more of this sort of holding during the Biden administration, where they were actually making infrastructure investments into some of these other areas. But I still keep it in my portfolio because I believe it's the right thing to do and it's the direction that we need to go. And I'm hoping that the companies in these areas thrive even in a Trump economy. So I've got an ESG stock and corporate bond fund, as well as an intermediate term treasury index fund. Here's another one of my European funds. Here's where I see those short-term treasuries in my portfolio. And here's another international stock fund. So this would be more encompassing than just the European market. And since I'm pulling pretty heavy for Japan through this, I put some money in the Nikkei. This would be the more conservative portfolio in comparison to my Roth IRA, which again, the Roth is only about 25% of my overall portfolio. But here you're going to see a lot more stock holdings. I think this particular account is like 95% stock and only 5% bonds. But you'll also notice a couple different ESG funds here, the U.S. stock one, and then there's also an international fund. Now, for the most important part, what has my portfolio produced, even in this Trump economy? And I have to say, I've been pleasantly surprised and pleased. Now, granted, I know the U.S. stock market is hitting record highs even right now, so a lot of people's portfolios are still doing very well. But this is where my portfolio is at right now. Since my investment advisor fired me in February 2023, the portfolio is up 15.4%. The overall investment returns is $120,000. Yay. Now, if you look though at year to date, so this would be since Donald J. entered the White House, basically January 1st. 20 days, we're still under Biden. We don't see a return, a percentage rate of return, but the portfolio has earned about $36,000. It's currently August, getting close to September. So divide that by 8. It's a little over 4,000 every month, which since the portfolio is about 400,000, that's about a 10% return. I'm just calculating quick off the top of my head. I've been thinking about doing more in the Pacific Rim. I have also heard that the Pacific Rim is probably going to go through a bigger shakeup than the European markets will, with Trump doing all of his tariff nonsense. So I thought I might wait a few more months, maybe till the end of this year, or maybe even until mid 2026 to move more money international or into the Pacific Rim. I didn't used to make all of these strategic moves. I'd pick a portfolio, I'd rebalance it. But right now, I feel like I have to make up for all of the nonsense that Trump is doing. And since I'm very active in what's going on, very informed, entrenched, I figure why not use some of that wisdom to try to prepare my portfolio. Now, I also want to make this point very clear. None of this has been intended to be investment advice for you. This was information so that you could decide what to do with your portfolio based on what I might have done with my portfolio. You should fully research any options before you get involved in it and make sure it's suitable for you. And final point, how do I decide on these? Like when I decided to move into European holdings, how did I decide that? Google searches and research. Honestly, what are some of the best European ETFs? And then I would start to look at those. One of the holdings that I have, European holdings, came from a subscriber who said, I'm going to move some money into this. And I did some research on it. And I'm like, you know what? That is a good fund. I'm going to put some money in there too. So look through the comments below and share your expertise to the others who are tuning in. We are in this together and we will get through this together. And it's through community that we can reduce fear too. Here are a couple different videos for you. One of them is that video about 5 ways to keep your finances secure during this Trump economy. And the other one is my first video, and you can pick which one, and I will see you there.